Guys, I'm here today to do my May wrap-up. May was actually a pretty good reading month for me. I think I read over 10 books, which I have not done in a really long time. I did read some of my TBR books that Ashley helped me pick out in the Friend Picks My TBR challenge, so I didn't read all of them, but I read some. I also was doing like a did not finish challenge video with myself. I think this one will be out before that goes out. It's kind of a little vlog of me reading books, and then, you know, DNFing ones I wasn't into, which I don't do. I always read books, but lately I've been like, if I don't like it, it's not worth keeping and trying to finish. First, I'm going to go through the books I did not finish this month. I picked up Spoiled by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. I was doing the like try chapter challenge, and I tried this one. I read about, I think I tried to read like more than a chapter just to see if I really wasn't into it, and I read like probably 3 or so chapters. It's just very youngly written. It's obviously for like 12-year-olds or younger, and I'm really into contemporary, and I like kind of catty girl stories, but not if they're written like so bad that I know that it's for someone way younger than me. They do reference like the Kardashians and such just in that short amount of time I read it, which like I love the Kardashians, I love reality TV and that kind of thing, but I couldn't make myself read past 50 pages of it. It was just too young for me. I also tried to read The Walls Around Us by Nova Ren Suma. I also again read like 50 pages or so of this. I could not get into it. I looked up reviews and people said you either love her writing or you hate it. I must hate her writing. I can't even tell you what this was supposed to be about. I know it's like a girl, it's more than one point of view, and it's like a girl who's like a dancer and then another girl's in prison, and it's like a ghost connection between them, or like another girl connects them. It was just, it didn't make any sense to me. I could not get past 50 pages. I just knew I wasn't gonna like it if I continued with it, and people either like loved it or they said like, oh, the ending was just okay, or like I didn't really like it but I loved the ending. So I was just like, I don't want to try to read this book just to get to the ending, so I gave up on it. I also gave up on Tender Morsels by Margot Langagon. I thought my friend Ashley from Tea Leaves and Bookbindings loved this book, but she actually told me she hated it, and she actually like read it. I don't know how she read it. I literally read 1 chapter of this book and I gave up. Like, it is written horribly. It is the worst written book I think I've ever tried to read, and I don't even know, like, do I have to just read you how it goes? It's not good. The first line is, there are plenty would call her a slut for it. There are plenty would call her a slut for it. There are plenty would call her a slut. That doesn't even make sense. There are plenty would call her, what? Yeah, I don't even know. It just was very badly written. It was not for me. And finally, the last one I'm going to count in my I did not finish was the Walt Disney World Historical Tour of Walt Disney? Alright, a historical tour of Walt Disney World by Andrew something. His name is covered up by the sticker. I counted that I read this because I tried to read it, I started it, and I was like kind of into it. I was like, oh, it's going to be all about the rides and the history, but no, it's like this weird history textbooks that reference like Walt Disney's father and how hard he worked and how hard like Walt Disney worked 7 billion times in this book, and it's like repeated things, and I thought it was going to be like more about just the history of Disneyland in like a way of like, I think a fan would like it, but I think this was more of how like an historian would like it. So it was just facts about like the 1800s and the pirates and blah 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 for the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, not like, oh, Walt liked pirates so he decided to make it kind of thing. And that's what I thought it was going to be, more of like why the rides happened in a family friendly way, not the like history way. So I gave it 2 stars for like the parts I liked of like actually talking about the rides. But I basically skim read this and skipped a lot of chapters, so I'm counting that I didn't really read it, even though I did read it, you know, so I wouldn't really pick it up unless you are a big historian and want to know actual facts about history, but I wouldn't say it's actually about Walt Disney World. Okay, and now our books I actually read all of them and can talk to you about them, and I'm just going randomly in the front of me of what's there. So I picked up P to 10 by Cage Johnbow. This was one of the books I picked for my TBR, and I read this probably when I was like 12, 13 is when I got into anime and manga, so I'm sure I picked this up when I was 12, 13, and it's not very good anymore, being 25 years old. It's way too young. This main character, she's like a guardian angel. She comes and takes care of the boy main character, but she talks in baby talk. Everything is like, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, baby, blah, blah, blah. And it's like super baby talk, like, oh, I have a boo-boo. Oh, no, you know, and it's just very young. It was very painful to get through. I own the rest of the series, and I do think I want to reread them before I, like, donate them, but I know after reading this first one, it's not one I'm going to hang on to. That's why I wanted to reread some of my manga, because ones like Fruits Basket and Full Metal Alchemist are ones I know I love and I'm going to keep, but all these side ones I read when I was like 12, 13, I have never reread them, and I'm like, is it still as good as I remember? And for me, no. This fallen angel-y guardian angel story is not really for me, but I think I'll keep reading them because it wasn't horrible, and then my dog chewed the cover of it when I put it on the floor, so thanks for that. Then I picked up Hans Christian Andersen's Fairy Tales, retold by Naomi Lewis. This was okay. I feel like growing up I knew all of these stories even though I haven't read them. Like, you know of the Little Mermaid story and you know of like Thumbelina and all that, so it was nothing new. Nothing like exciting. It didn't add anything to my life. There were some really boring ones in there, and then there was a lot I just already knew. Little Mermaid, Ugly Duckling, Thumbelina, etc. And then all the ones that were added that I hadn't really heard of were pretty boring. So again, I think I give this like 2 stars or so. It's not anything special to me. Most of these stories were like 3 pages long, nothing to them really, so I read it, but nothing special. I read The Looking Glass Wars, Seeing Red by Frank Bador. This is the sequel to The Looking Glass Wars. I read The Looking Glass Wars, I believe earlier this year or the end of last year, and I liked it. It wasn't my favorite, but I love Alice in Wonderland retellings, so this is a sequel to an Alice in Wonderland retelling. Not as good as the first one. I definitely liked that one a lot more. Then I read Top 10 by Katie Katungo, and I loved 99 Days by her. It's one of my favorite contemporaries. So I was like so excited to read another one by her. This is the arc I won at like a Barnes & Noble event a few months ago. It's about a boy and a girl, and they're kind of counting down their top 10 moments from high school and about like knowing each other and all that. But I just don't think it was well written. I didn't really care about the main characters, either the boy or the girl. It was like told in their points of view, but not like or anything. It was still like, I can't remember their names. Let's see. Gabby and somebody. Ryan. So it was told in Gabby and Ryan's, like, not their points of view, but it would just be like, Gabby did this and Ryan did this, that kind. And, I don't know, it was okay. Not the best. Not the worst. It kind of reminded me of, it was pretty much like any high school, like making a list moments in high school story. I've read a few of those. None of them are that spectacular. So again, like, I don't think this was her best work. I don't think it was written well at all. I think 99 Days was actually really good, unless I'm remembering it wrong, because I did read it a few years ago. So now I kind of want to reread it to make sure it's still good, but I really didn't like this one. Then I read The Splendor Falls by Rosemary Clement Moore, and I really enjoyed this one. It's about a girl who was a ballerina, and she breaks her leg, so her dancing career is pretty much over. She moves to Alabama to live in family's like old house that her dad's cousin is like restoring, so it's like her second cousin, you know, and she stays there, and it's this big old like mansion in Alabama, and it's kind of like weird ghost things are happening. There is kind of like, not a love triangle, but there's 2 different like guys. I didn't think it needed like the romance part of it, but they always have to add that to young adult books. They do it in every young adult book, so I understand. But I really liked her as a main character. I liked her, like, she didn't believe in like the ghost stories, but then kind of like dived more into them. And then I read Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Gaskell. This is one that was so hard to get into. I kind of wish I didn't finish it. It's about a girl who's in a treatment center for harming herself or something. And I just think it was like really weirdly written. It was I mean, it's told in like kind of verses and pieces because it's a girl in pieces. So she's telling her story in pieces, which Ashley from Tea Leaves and Book Bindings pointed out to me, and I was like, that makes sense how it's written. Because at first I was just like, that's so annoying. Why is it told in little like sections? But see, that makes sense now. But I don't like how it's written because I don't like poetry in verses or anything. So that was hard to get into. And the story was like, I just really thought it was boring at first. Once she gets out of the treatment center though, the story kind of picks up. She moves to a town that like her ex-boyfriend tells her to move into and like, you know, get the place, starts a job. Her mom isn't really in her life, so she's kind of like on her own at 16, 17, trying to... She might be 18, but her mom had to like sign her out. So I think she was like 17. I don't remember. But her mom's just not in her life. And so she's trying to like be an adult and grow up and take care of herself. But like near the end it got better, I guess. But I still didn't really like it. I feel like it was very long of a story to like finally get into it after like 200, 300 pages. So to me that's not worth it. But I think some other people would really like it more if you like how that storytelling is told. But for me, I didn't like this broken sections and like really short chapters. I'm not into that. I read Wild Beauty by Anna Marie Mclemore, and I'm really disappointed in this one just because I love her other two books so much. It was my least favorite out of her two books. This one is about a group of cousins. They're kind of magical realism book, and they can grow plants and flowers and everything, and it's kind of like people they love disappear. So this girl in their town that they all kind of love, she's disappeared and they all think it's their fault, and then they find like a boy, and there's been like no men around in their families, so they're kind of like, where did you come from? And he sort of has amnesia and doesn't really know, and it's just a story like, you know, trying to find who he is. And it was just okay. Again, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I don't think I would reread it. Next, I reread Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This one is so good. I loved it. I think even more than the first time I read it. It's about 3 sisters, and when they turn like 16, you fight to see who will be like the queen, and this happens every, you know, century or decade. I don't know. It happens every... When does it happen? Every time 3 triplets are born? It happens every time like 3 triplets are born? I'm not really sure like how many years it's supposed to be every time. I'm sure it explains in like the sleeve. Let's look. In every generation on the island of Fenburn, a set of triplets is born. There we go. And it's about a girl who is a poisoner. She can like consume poisons and doesn't get hurt. There's a girl who can control like animals, and there's a girl who control elements, and they actually can't, some of them can't really do what they say they do, but they say they can do them, so that they've been training to take each sister down, and it's just really good. I really liked the poisoners section, and last time I read it, I didn't like the other 2 sections at all. I only liked the poisoners, but this time rereading it, I love the poisoners section the most still. But I actually liked the other girls' sections. I liked the elemental girl the second best, and I still didn't really like the girl who worked with, like, controlled animals. Her section to me was the most boring, but I still really enjoyed it. Instead of, like, 4 stars that I gave it last time, I give it closer to 5 stars this time, and I really can't wait to pick up the next one. I have it. I just wanted to reread this one before I picked that one up, so I'm excited to pick it up and continue with this cool 3 queen story. Next, I read Leaving Time by Jodi Picoult, and I'm so mad it took me so long to read this book. I've had this forever, like since 2014 when it came out, and this cover is so boring, right? Like, there's nothing to this. I never wanted to pick this up. I either like love her books or kind of don't like them. They're usually about like courts and the law and like lawyers, and to me it's kind of boring, but this one has nothing to do with that, so if that's why you don't like her books, I'd pick up this one. But it's really good. It's about a girl who, she's 13 or 14, and her mom, I think she's 13. It's about a girl who's 13, and her mom has been missing since she was 3, and she hires a psychic to help find her mom, and they also get a help of a retired detective that was on the scene of like when her mom, the last time her mom was seen, he was one of the last people to see her 10 years ago, and so it's a really cool, like, you know, mystery story of trying to find their mom, and used to work in Africa with the elephants. So it's a really cool story that tells you like so much about elephant facts. Like, you never knew you wanted to know so much about elephants, right? But the story tells you a lot of elephant facts. So I thought it was really cool. Some of the reviews were like, I didn't sign up to read like, you know, a history book. And yes, there are a lot of elephant facts in here. Like, a lot. Like, half this book is about elephants. But I thought it was kind of cool. I thought it was cool. She doesn't usually write like that. And we actually listened to this again on audiobook we went on a road trip. And so I read this twice this month. Basically, we listened to probably half of the audiobook. So I've read this and I listened to half of it this month. It was that good. And like listening to it, all the stuff from the beginning that I then knew at the end was like, you know, so I was like crying listening to the audiobook even though I had just read it like a week before, because I was like, oh, I know what's gonna happen next, you know? And the ending to me was like shocking. It was so good. It's probably one of my new favorite Jodi Picoult books. Then I read The Last Boy and Girl in the World by Siobhan and Vivian. This one was pretty good. I did like it. It's about this girl in a town, and the town is been raining so much and it's flooding. So it's a contemporary, so it's about a girl who's like in love with this boy, and she's been in love with him forever. And it's like, you think at first it's just going to be this love story, but then this flood element happens to it, and there's this emotional twist of like, if their houses are going to get lost, and like the girl's friends leave, and my dog is squeaking a toy, so if you hear that, I'm really sorry. Oh, now she stops when I'm talking. Anna. Kind of a love triangle. There's two different boys. One is a guy she's loved forever, and then one is kind of one that like she didn't get along with in high school. It is very angsty. I saw a lot of reviews saying like they hated the main girl character. There's like nothing redeemable about her, and I could see that reading it. She is kind of the worst, but I like was rooting for her at the same time. I wanted her to be happy even though she was kind of a negative character. But it was just one that sucked me in. I just really wanted to find out like how the town was gonna do, like, you know, all their shops were closing and everybody was moving, and how people were gonna survive in this town with it flooding. And so it was a cool, like, it just sucked me in. I just kept reading. So I would recommend it for a cool, like, fast-paced read, but I wouldn't say it's like the best book or contemporary, but it was very entertaining. Then I read Protected by Claire Zorn. This was another one I won at a Barnes & Noble event, and it's just one I haven't picked up because, I don't know, the cover is just kind of like, it doesn't really draw me in, but I actually really liked it. It's about a girl who is in a car with her dad and her older sister Katie, and there is a car accident and Katie dies in it, and her dad is very badly hurt, and she kind of gets away unscratched from it. And she was bullied so much in high school, but then since her sister gets killed, no one bullies her anymore. She's stopped being bullied, and people leave her alone. And it's kind of her mom is just super upset, doesn't leave the house. Her life is pretty much over that her daughter died, and she's so upset with her dad because the dad was the one driving. The mom wants the main character, Hannah, to come forth and like admit the dad was recklessly driving or something was wrong, and that's why they got in a crash. But Hannah says she has amnesia and like can't remember anything, which she is like kind of just blocking it out. Throughout the story it gets revealed what actually happened and how her sister died, and it goes through like her past of how she was bullied and what happened and how her relationship with her sister and family was. My dog is still playing with the toy, so sorry for the squeaking. And Anna, stop please, just snuggle it. And I really enjoyed this one. This is probably one of my favorite ones I read this month. It went by really fast, pretty short, so it was a quick read. But she also, like, she was obsessed with making, like, lists about things, and I like to do that too. Like, she'd be like, top 10 things I love, top 10 things I hate, top 10 things, or, you know, those kind of things. And I enjoy, like, list things, and she would do that in the beginning of chapters, and it was just one I really liked. And finally this month I read Proxy by Alex London. I actually really enjoyed this one. I know some people say it's not that good, but I thought it was a pretty cool, like, I mean, it kept me entertained. I read this in like one sitting because I just wanted to know what would happen. It's a world where rich people own proxies, which is like if the rich person does something bad, the proxy is the one who like gets the blame for it, and the bad things are taken out on the proxy. The people that own the proxies are called patrons. So the patron of this world, Knox, has a proxy called Sid, and this is Sid's story basically. And Sid is like, you know, working off his debt of being a proxy, and Knox kills a girl. So then the sacrifice for like Knox killing the girl is his Sid being the proxy. He adds like more years to his sentence of being one. He has to get the girl's name like tattooed on him, and when the bad things happen to the proxy, Knox's father makes him watch everything. So since he was young, Knox would watch everything bad happen to Sid, and he always felt like pretty bad, but he was like, oh, there's nothing I can really do about it. But it was just so fast paced, and it was so like quick to read. I liked it, and I do want to continue with it, but I would probably just pick it up from the library. So yeah guys, these are all the books I read in, or tried to read in May.